So microphone's okay?
Hello and welcome to this episode of Conversation with Friends. And today I have a very special guest, Brian Holmes, who is probably needs no introduction to many of you here in Australia. Brian, thank you for joining me.
Michelle, it's a pleasure. Glad I could be here.
Now, we've tried a couple of times, we've been a bit unfortunate, so we are well versed in the conversation we're going to have. We are going to chat to Brian today about who Brian is, some of his stories he has for us, and then we're going to introduce some collaboration that we're working on together. So let's kick off with Brian. Tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I'm a director of Exponential, one of the founding directors. We're an Australian consulting firm that specialises in big gift campaigns, so capital campaigns, capacity campaigns, major gift programs. I've been a consultant for almost, well, I used to say almost 25 years, now it's almost 30 years, and started my own consultancy before teaming up with one of my friends and colleagues from way back to form Exponential in 2004. And I guess, you know, the other aspect is I'm a former chair of Fundraising Institute Australia, and along with that and many other things, I've had the privilege of speaking at conferences and forums around the world. So yeah, no, it's really a privilege.
Very knowledgeable, one of the knowledge keepers of wisdom, and that's one of the reasons we're collaborating. But before we go into that, inspiration, I guess, is the basis of the community. Fundraising Nest, particularly the community. It's about people inspiring people. And I think in fundraising in particular as a profession, we absolutely learn from our peers and we're inspired by those that have led the way forward in what we know as fundraising today. And I'm sure over the last 30 years, it's changed significantly, but maybe not at the same time. So can you share with us somebody who's inspired your kind of thinking and aspirations around fundraising?
Yes, well, you're certainly right about the changes over that time. I mean, when I first started, which was sort of pre-Google, pre-Amazon, pre any opportunity for online education, pre-internet, I think. I feel like a bit of a dinosaur saying that these days, but it was very difficult to get my hands on any books or educational material way back then. And the very first book that I finally managed to get my hands on was a book called Mega Gifts by Jerold Panas, an American guru in the big gift space, and probably the best practitioner of capital campaigns in the US at that time. And it blew my mind. And it's probably still, you know, a book I reference even today. There's one thing that I took out of it that I use almost daily today, and where it was Jerry said, look, the best thing you can do is challenge somebody to give a gift they can be proud of. And I guess that's a line I use all the time. Over the years, I've had the opportunity then to meet Jerry, and I did have the wonderful opportunity to meet him in New York and spend some time with him and even catch up with him over lunch at the New York Athletics Club. And it was the most valuable time I've spent. And to this day, we still have a very close relationship with, although Jerry has, I should say, has passed away since, we have a close relationship with the Panas, Lindsay and Partners, the consultancy over there, and Doug Dillon, who heads it up now.
That's amazing. Yeah, we will maybe add that book to our list, and we've got a Leo Arlen does a book review, so I'll have a chat to Leo about that book. So let's go backwards to, you know, fundraising. What your experience, earliest fundraising memory for me, it was Bob Geldof was one of my kind of, when he did Live Aid, and I was fortunate enough last year to get to meet Sir Bob, and that was huge for me. And in the kind of housing estate I lived in, we all went out collecting money for Live Aid. So what's one of your earliest fundraising memories?
Well, I think apart from sort of the Boy Scouts Bob a Job Week and the school sort of walkathons and those sorts of things, probably, you know, if I go back to my first job interview, I applied for this role in fundraising, and I had no background or no knowledge of fundraising. And I remember the question that was posed to me in the interview was, so Brian, how would you go about raising $500,000? And I guess my response at that time was quite simple, but also seemed to be quite profound. In the fact, I said, look, I'd look for somebody who could give $500,000, and I'd ask them to give $500,000. And I remember the interviewer sort of staring back at me, and I thought, oh, have I said something wrong? And then they said, actually, that's the best answer we've ever had to that question. Most people go into a whole lengthy diatribe about doing this and doing that. So, in one way, I'm glad they didn't delve deeper about, the science and the art of fundraising, because I knew nothing else, and it just means I came up with a spontaneous answer.
But actually, the fundamental ask is the science, isn't it? It's asking the right person at the right time for the right amount of money. So
yeah, that's right. And all you do over years of experience is obviously fine tune that to where you can anticipate responses and work them through. Yeah,
you've got to be very instinctual in humans. I think is we're good at understanding humans as fundraisers. Absolutely. So today there is it's a crowded, noisy place. I think almost sometimes there is, although we want fundraisers to learn more, I think sometimes there's almost too much, and it's like cutting through the noise of what's the fun, what is the priorities for. Do you have what are your top 3 priorities, do you think, for people working in the sector today?
Well, going back to, that education aspect, I think that's number one. Read, and then read some more. If you're not a reader, then obviously, YouTube, wherever you can pick it up, blogs, etc. It's a great way to get understanding, and even the courses and the videos and some of the great things that Fundraising Nest is putting up, are really shortcuts to really getting hold of that information. I guess the second area is exposure to thought leaders. I've been very fortunate over my career to actually, been able to interact, and firstly through national conferences and then international conferences, to interact with people I can identify as being thought leaders in the space. And I think, what that does for me is exposes me to not only the new people, but new ideas. And over the years, I've tried many new ideas I've seen and picked up and probably plagiarized. And some have worked brilliantly and some have been absolute failures. But, that exposure to thought leaders, I think, is the second one. The third one, I would say, is never be afraid to be coached or mentored. And, it's not a sign of deficiency to ask somebody to, for advice and to help. And in fact, probably the starting point that I do, in any even the work with clients is, what advice can I get in relation to this client and in relation to their giving, etc. But certainly in relation to getting somewhere clearly forward, I'd certainly say that, that aspect of aligning myself with somebody who can coach me or mentoring has been of great value over the years as well.
Absolutely. I think it's asking for advice is critical, and it also builds relationships. And when you've got those relationships, whether it's professionally or for fundraising, they actually all they interconnect in the most interesting ways, don't they? And it can be as simple as asking someone for advice, for sure. Okay, and when we talk about what do you love about, 30 years, that's how you've made a lifetime career out of it. Why do you love what you do?
That's an interesting question. I remember being asked on a panel a couple of years ago, what do you love most about fundraising? And my response was, and I'm coming from a different angle here, I guess my response was this. And I probably paused a lot longer, but what the moment between making an ask and getting a response, because it's that moment of silence that you've done everything possible right now to give somebody the opportunity, and now it's that decision aspect of things, and it's that silence that also provides the consideration of that. There's nothing worse than somebody saying, oh yeah, that sounds good to me, yeah, put me down for that, because you go, oh, I blew it, I asked for too little, or this is too shallow a response. It's that silence that causes the consideration. And of course, for me, it's also that anticipation of what's going to be the next words. Will it be yes? Will it be no? Will it be a discussion on how we facilitate this? So So that's probably the first thing that I really enjoy, because that never gets old, sitting there.
No, you've just taught me something, the power of silence. That silence
Yeah.
brings me so much anxiety, but actually at the same time, you're right, it brings with it anticipation and excitement. And I've never considered that before. So thank you.
Yeah, and it takes training sometimes not to talk through the silence, because it can be uncomfortable in the first situations until you realize that really you're paying respect to somebody to give them the thinking time. I guess the other side of it is, and it goes to the title that I use on my business cards, of philanthropologist. And it was sort of a made up title. And obviously, you know, I don't need to explain where the derivation comes from. But what sort of keeps me motivated is understanding people's motivations to give. And really everybody I meet with who potentially is giving a large gift is something I explore with them. So what is it that started your philanthropy? What is it that started you giving in a major way? And just those stories that come out of, you know, what makes people generous,
Yeah.
inspires you to go, look, you know, I want to meet more generous people, and I'm in the right business to do that.
You are, it's fundraising is not about the money. It's about one person talking to another person about, changing or making a difference to something. And there's
Yeah.
something beautiful in that, isn't there?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the collaboration that we have been fortunate enough to cross paths. We are about to launch a course that you wrote several years back that has been repurposed and brought back to life under the Fundraising Nest. And this is a major gifts fundraising program. It has just been certified with CFRE for 6 CFRE points.
Oh.
It's a pretty robust course. So would you like to just kind of tell us a little bit of an overview of what fundraisers can learn by doing this course, brought to you by the Fundraising Nest and Exponential?
Yeah, sure, Michelle. I think firstly, I should mention that it's not just my experience going into this, but I work together with Craig Gravestein and the other co-founder of Exponential, and also Rowan Wishart, who would be well known to a lot of people as well. And Rowan is another director of our business, and the three of us sort of tried to encapsulate all of the knowledge that the three of us could bring to how to set up a major gifts program, what goes into it, the phases moving through it, everything from the initial phases of how do you identify solid prospects, what's the sort of case that you need to present, and how do you need to present that, how do you cultivate the prospects, because again, not everybody is ready to be asked straight off the bat, and then moving through to really that whole art of asking. So we talk about the science at the front end of it, of how you do, and then we move into this art of asking, which is really about learning that whole aspect, including the silence, all of those aspects of, okay, how do you actually sit in front of a donor and ask them for $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, in a way that will get you the maximized result. And then, of course, we sort of tail end that with the whole aspect then of the ongoing stewardship of that program and those donors. So it's a thorough beginning to end course.
It is, and so it's got essentially eight lessons or modules, but within those modules there is a lot of information. So it's an online self-paced course, and it's got about 6 hours of recorded footage. You can't skip through it. You've got to go through the lessons. And at the end, am I right in that ideally they will have essentially a strategy. They'll have created a strategic approach from, for example, if you don't have a major donor program, this might create one, or if you do have a major donor program, it will kind of refresh it and bring it back to life. It's for all levels.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for those starting, obviously, even from that point of beginning to start to build that that donor pipeline aspect, and how you do that, how you qualify, your prospects, all that sort of thing is going to be great. For others, it will be that aspect of, well, actually, how do I put systems in place that ensure that I've taken the right steps towards this and I haven't missed anything. So I think it really covers the gamut of those that are new, but also those that have been practicing in the area, but are finally saying, well, actually, I want to systemize this a little bit better so I can put in steps, work it within my CRM, whatever it might be that actually makes this, not only, I guess, not only operationally manageable, but also gives you the ability to foresee where things are coming. I mean, that's one of the big questions we're always asked is, what are you going to raise? And it's very hard to say that unless you've actually got a foundation that has been systematically built to say, well, this is what I know is in the pipeline and I know we can expect.
Yeah. Fabulous. And I know we've got some feedback from the course has been completed previously, and just reading here, found it useful, specific, well-paced, the information is presented in an easy to digest way. They liked the videos because it's a visual, this person was a visual learner, and it was a super useful and practical. And this person had over a decade experience, but this course really set them up and brought them up to speed. So it's an exciting course, and I am delighted that we are collaborating on this, and it will be launching in the next couple of weeks on the Fundraising Nest website. And we are going to keep in touch. There will be, for those that are looking for extra support, and you mentioned how important mentoring and coaching was, that kind of opportunity for monthly, we're going to work with the students, but there will be access to you for short times for questions and answers.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you can't put within the course when you put it on video or in any other format is, of course, the stories that go with it that demonstrate various aspects. And I am a storyteller, and so I had to very much discipline myself not to go off and sort of say, oh, and there was this time, and then this happened. But they're the sort of things, hopefully, that we can also add within the Q&A sessions when people are asking, so how does that practically work in this situation?
In context, that's the thing with a lot of learning, isn't it? Once you've got the knowledge base, you then have to apply context to the situation, and that's where that's not that's not straightforward learning. That's where the kind of mentor guidance, questions, and experience comes from.
Yes, those nuances,
Absolutely. Well, it's been wonderful. I mean, we're almost coming to the end of our conversation, but before I ask you the very final question, just to find out a little bit about Brian, would you mind indulging me on a this or that? I'm going to give you two things and you've got to choose between one, and it'll just give us a bit of an insight into Brian. So, mountains or beaches?
Sorry, Michelle, I missed that.
Mountains or beaches?
Mountains or beaches? Beaches for sure.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert, and one of the challenges is learning how to be a great face-to-face fundraiser when you're introverted.
Movies or books?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say books.
Tea or coffee?
Definitely coffee. I need at least one to kick me off every morning.
Cats or dogs?
I'm not a cat person, so definitely dogs.
Morning bird or night owl?
Night owl, definitely.
Camping or hotels?
If you'd asked me 20 or so years ago, it might have been different, but hotels today,
Couple more. Phone calls or text messages?
Text messages. The introvert in me comes out. I have to force myself to pick up the phone.
Pizza or curry?
Pizza.
And last one, Marmite or honey?
Neither, if possible. But honey, if pushed.
Well, thank you for indulging me in that little bit of getting to know you. Let's finish with the last question we always ask everyone. What advice would you give to your younger self that you didn't know then, but you do know now?
I think that probably what I would have done sooner is sort of going back to what I said before, surrounding myself with good people. I think, the hardest period was when I felt I was out on this on my own and not really having people to talk to. Once I got people around me who were able to, give me some advice, give me some some encouragement, that's what helped me. And I remember actually one of the great leaders in our industry in Australia, Arthur Venn. I sat with him once at a dinner event, and again, unfortunately, he's passed away. And I had the privilege of speaking at his funeral, but I was sitting at dinner with him, and I think he was about 90 years old at the time, and I was about 40 years old. And he said to me, "Young man," which I appreciated at the age of 40, he said, "Fundraising is an honourable profession. Never let anyone despise you for giving people an opportunity to give, for it's truly better to give than receive." And I thought, well, that was quite profound, Arthur. Thank you for that. And then he added, "And the more they give, the better it is for all of us." Yeah. And so I've sort of taken that over the years. But yeah, just having those people sort of give you those snippets sort of has been the sort of thing that really has great input into my life.
They are.
And I probably would have sought them out earlier as a younger fundraiser.
Oh, that's wonderful. Brian, I want to thank you so much for both for the collaboration and for joining with me today. I think your knowledge being kind of given to the community is a great legacy, and I'm sure many people will learn a lot from you and your team skills, and we will keep in touch, and I'm sure this isn't the last time we chat. But for today, thank you everyone for joining us in this conversation with friends, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye-bye.
Bye.